Peace, world. Welcome back to another episode of the Klyph Notes podcast. You know, it's available everywhere you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or at klyphnotes.com. I guess a couple updates to let you know. Be sure to tap in on DJ Klyph at Bands in Town so you can stay updated on all the events that I have going on, the radio show, live events with no requests, other podcast recordings that we'll be doing. Got some stuff coming up, planning possibly later this year to do another Klyph Notes live event, so you definitely want to be on the lookout for that. And yeah, man, just stay tapped in every fourth Sunday. No requests, live at the White Eagle Saloon. Really dope to be here today. We're back at the XRAY FM production suite to have this conversation with a cat. We've been talking about trying to do this for a while, man. So let me just say how much I appreciate you taking the time, pulling up, man. We got Can Jones live on the Klyph Notes podcast. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great, bro. I was looking forward to this. Like,
that's what's up.
Legit pumped to get in here and talk with you.
Yeah. So it's interesting, man. Listeners will know, but the genesis of the Klyph Notes podcast, it really came out of the radio show Welcome to the Neighborhood, where we'd be done with the show and I'd have these conversations with people when we get off the microphone. And I always felt like they were such great conversations because that's where we'd get into stuff that maybe didn't really fit in the radio show because it's a music show, you know what I mean? And it created this opportunity to dive a little bit deeper in and let individuals tell their stories, sort of the story behind the story. And for me, I'm a curious cat, you know what I mean? And so I always think about where did I tap in, or where did people, where did I become aware of who folk are and what they're doing? Okay. So I was thinking about that, right? And I know that I remember knowing of Unrefined Sophisticates. Okay. And then I saw 9 Brand. And I was like, yo, that's kind of dope, right? Yeah. And the more I would look in, sort of see some of the stuff that you were working on, I realized, wow, and there's. But like, tell me, bro, like, where did it start for you in terms of just being a creative?
So that is childhood. The funny thing, you used the word, you said the phrase, I'm just a curious person. As a kid, it's just curiosity of, seeing things, and I wonder if I can do that. And then going for it. One of the things I'll give shout out to my pops. He's the working man, all the tools, all the things. Let us play, be kids, go explore, go get dirty, get hurt, all the stuff. Just being curious. Just put everything back. That was the request, right? And so with that young, it was watching things, I say, looking at growing up and thinking about how the things that we get encouraged to do, right? Or the things that we have general interest in sometimes that aren't encouraged by those around us. Young, being bored, we had an Encyclopedia Britannica set. I don't know how, as broke as we were, how we had this set of encyclopedias. These were in the house. The amount of joy I got on my own, flipping through these, just reading, right? And then going into figuring out little science projects, little stuff just at the house of figuring things out. And so I think that just general curiosity of how stuff works, and then starting to trend towards creating. There's something about having an idea in your mind and then making it happen and people gravitating towards it. Like, that's a feeling. You can't put that into words. You have to just experience that. So trying to tell someone, and we're all creative. There's a bunch of different ways we think creativity just is art, right? And there's so many ways to be creative. I watch, in our social media age, looking sometimes, I'm like, how did you figure out how to sprinkle salt on a piece of paper, turn it around, and now it's a face? You know what I mean? But so with that, just being young, I knew there was something there. I never was really good at like drawing and that type of stuff, but my understanding of like composition and framing and just looking around for balance. I think that's some of the things that are inherent in there. And as we were talking a little bit off mic, it was just trying things and having interest and getting good. And I won't put on myself, I know we're in the age of everybody's ADHD and all that stuff. I just have a lot of interest in things, right? Like, I encapsulated into that. And with that, when I do put my energy towards something, without trying to sound cocky or anything, it typically comes out good. Not to say I don't fail a million times, right? But I'm also the person that will see it through. Like, I'm going to figure this out, even if I'm not going to do anything with the end result. I just want to know that I can do it. that if nothing else, it helps me in terms of if you and I are having a conversation about something in the music space, or we're having something in the producing space, I have some knowledge to be able to have this conversation with you. Or if I need a service or something, you know, I think about that also, where it's like, oh, I know how to screen print. I don't necessarily want to do that, but I know how to do it. So when I'm talking to somebody about screen printing that I'm trying to get a service from, I can speak their language and I'm not getting duped, right? That just has kind of been my approach. I'm also I'm hands-on, the DIY guy. I'm probably one of the few in my generation that still got a whole garage full of tools. I will jack a car up and change everything within that vehicle, and anybody else's. That's just my mode of operation. Now, again, with me saying this, there's a lot of fumbling, through the process, but it's just something that I've been open to, and that's been able to transition into the messaging of the 9 brand, right? And these other ventures that I'm a part of. That curiosity is what keeps it going. There's also this thing that I'll say where me and the homies talk about this often. I lived long enough to be corny, and there was a long period of life where I wasn't allowed to be corny, right? And because of just conditions and lifestyles and stuff, it had to be so serious and locked into things a certain way, and being able to actually channel these thoughts that might not pop up in some of the spaces that I'm typically in when I was typically in when I was younger, allowing that just to flow. It's like, oh, this has been fun the whole time. I just limited myself, but also the encouragements that may have not been there in my area and my immediate circumference of people. That kind of limited, I think, some of my ideas for what could be. And that's where a lot of it was just, it's a little stone throw versus winding up and trying to lob, you know what I mean? So that's part of the path, but it's gotten to here, and the creative process, I think just in general, is always flowing. Walking over to you right now, when I seen you in the rear view, I was in the middle of sending a voice note because one of my partners hit me about helping him to reimagine a logo. And he's like, I know the way your brain works as far as being able to pull things together. So it's like that is just consistently going, right?
Got you. It's interesting. You said something that resonated with me, living long enough to get to be corny. And I was talking to wifey recently about the space that I'm in this season of my life, where I realize that I'm comfortable being me, right? And and we're all wired a little bit different, like you said. Experience and circumstance can impact that. But just really being comfortable and confident in who I am, and understanding that, and some of it is just the way that I'm wired, right? I'm trying to live up to expectation of my peers, of my seniors. I'm just trying to fit in. I'm trying to figure it out. And getting to a place where like, nah, I'm kind of good with where I am and who I am. And sometimes people kind of look at you like, oh, that's how I'm moving. Right? And being good with that. It's such a there's less stress associated with it. And then, like you said, being able to put the energy into that to create consistency and great quality in whatever it is that you're doing.
There was a thing that one of my partners had said young, and I'm talking maybe when I was like 20 years old, right? And it's like, confidence is built through sponsorship, right? And in the moment, it was like, he's always saying something, right? In the moment. But that stuck because, again, you think about when you're young and you hear parents like, oh, he's shy, she's shy. You start taking that in, right? Versus, you're a strong speaker. You're those just differences in words. That's confidence and like instilling the confidence. And this understanding, shout out to Faith, Sister Faith, she had said something to me back in 2018. We had did these woke events. We were doing woke events, woke PDX, and we were just having conversations with groups of people, about 80 to 100 people or so. And she had me host. And I was having this after a couple of sessions. I was just like, not necessarily feeling like the best in terms of hosting, but I was like, people be wanting me back. And I couldn't understand it because I'm like, I listen to other people get up here and orate, and I'm like, duh, you know how to really hold the crowd. I sound like I'm just up here rambling. And she was like, no, it's you. It has nothing to do with this. It's you. It's you being who you are. That's why it works, because they know that Cam might say something left field and then come right back to the point. That's what works. And it was something about her saying that to me that impacted me in this way. In a moment, I think I was in a bit of transition phase in life in general, of trying to figure that part of, man, I'm not as dialed and buttoned up as, you know, some of the people that I see that are doing some of the things I'd like to do.
Yeah.
That part of that conversation helped me understand, oh no, I can do that, because skill wise I can do that thing. But if I also just bring me to it, that now adds the flavor and the twist to make it my own thing, to where I'm not having to hold up the weight of a character. And that, again, she may not know that. This might be the first time I've said that out loud. You know what I'm saying? But it just, that was a thing that stuck with me. And I just make sure that I'm infusing that into everything. And it also hasn't changed. Like, I think about some of my childhood friends, some of my neighborhood friends, some of the people from different lifestyles that I was a part of at one point. And they have the same respect, right? And there was a period where I thought this would make me now seem soft in some kind of way, or seeing, you know what I'm saying? All of those things that meant something at some point, based on. And so coming into the now, where again, it's like, this is, I am who I am. You are getting me. And this translates from, you know, of course, you know the space, read the room, know how to do and move. But in general, you're going to get these bars. Like that's, you know?
And I think that authenticity is what shines through, right? At the end of the day, when we get into these places, these spaces where we have people's attention. And that's why I think oftentimes the description that, I mean, I can see what you're describing, right? That is maybe what she was trying to express, is when you're there, when you have the attention of the audience, they see you. And just be you. Like that's why you're asked back. Because we like, you know what I mean? It's funny. I was talking to the homie DJ OG1 once about doing gigs, and I was like, man, I'm like radio, all glory to God. Like I got that. Right? Doing live events, I don't know. And people asking me, and OG was like, man, if they're asking for you to do what you do. You know what I mean? I can't be OG1. I can't be DJ Fatboy. I can't be, you know, these other DJs who I look up to. But nobody can do Klyph better than Klyph. So lean into that, right? And wherever people are, whatever walk of life they're in, like, remember that. Like, bring, you know, operate at your higher frequency, but bring the best version of you. And, you know, that's where you excel.
It's a little tangent on that same topic, though. It's interesting because in the role for my 9 to 5 and what I do in this corporate space and technology, coming up, I didn't understand titles, right? I just knew you're a manager, an assistant manager, you just work. I didn't understand how in a career there's so many titles that exist, and then when some of these titles sound like you have to be the smartest person in the world. Getting into this space with people that I would from the outside view like they've got to be light years above me in terms of intelligence, the organization, just skills in general, and coming into this role and realizing like, oh no, you just have a title. Not to say they're not great at what they do, but I realize that what I bring is this like full scope of skill sets that aren't just job related, that work for my role. And coming into my position in which I came into, the person that was doing what I do before me had been there like 27 years. They knew this like the back of their hand. I got hired to teach a software I didn't even know.
It's crazy.
And had that class up and running within 3 months. But not only that, it was being in these classes and dealing with, again, these professionals, your CFOs, your different accountants, wondering what I translate. These scores, wild, of the feedback of my style, because I'm just talking to y'all. I'm not super technical in terms of trying to give you all the technical terminology for this stuff. Yeah, I'll introduce it as its technical term, but now from here on out, we're calling it this, because that's going to lock into your mind a lot better, because you're just being introduced to this and overload. And that's something that I understand about how I learn. So I typically will teach in the way that I learn. I know it's not a one size fits all. There's tweaks that definitely happen, but in general, it's resonated. And there's, you know, being in this space and seeing how I was, again, limiting myself, because I'm thinking like, I am tattooed from my neck all the way down. I had my dreads still when I started, all the things that I thought were working against me. And once getting into the space and having the opportunity and excelling in that space, being Kan.
Yeah.
That is the confidence boost that, you know, if I've never had one, that was it. I've had plenty of them, but that was one of those. And again, it's going back to just that idea of being comfortable in who I am. You're getting this. If I fumble, I fumble. I accept it, right? I'm not putting it on nobody else. So I'm going to take these wins and take these losses in the process. But it definitely is something to be in the now and just comfortable with what you see is what you get. Not that I'm closed off to new information and growing more, but overall, this is me. If it's for me, it is. If it ain't, it ain't.
No, I mean, and I love that, man, because I think that having that extra piece, right, where okay, I feel really good about where I'm at and how I'm moving, but like you said, still being open to one of my bosses in my 9-to-5 used to use the term lifelong learning, and I so believe in that, right? I think once you settle and feel like you got it figured out, and regardless of what you're talking about, right? I think that's when you start, as you get stuck first of all, and that's when you get in trouble.
Yeah, I talked to my dad about this recently, and I was telling him that my generation, me, my little cousin, we should have been siblings. Shout out Courtney. I'm like, we got to be the most immature but mature group of 40-year-olds that have existed. I was like, I seen you at 40 and my uncles and aunts, and y'all were like grown, like in a different, like y'all had given up on the parts of life that bring enjoyment. And I get it. You're a parent. It's hard being a parent and all those things. I'm a parent myself. I get it. But it was like y'all just hit this space and then just cruised along there.
Yeah.
You cruise with what you knew. Yeah. And it's like, I couldn't imagine not still trying to learn stuff, still being open to adding skill sets or being in spaces that I know nothing about just to see what's going on. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And of course that's not applicable to that whole generation, but that is a big difference where it's like, yeah, y'all were good at some point of just cruising along at that. And I can't wrap my mind around that. And I think that has made, you know, for even me and my children, there's a certain connection that we have that is a little bit different than me and my pops, which, you know, he's my hero to this day. Yeah. But he was just a serious man, and, you know, he was taken real serious. I'm just too open to stuff to not, for one, take myself that serious. Like, we are here. So therefore, I'm able to interact with them children a completely different way than, you know, he was able to interact with me, because also I'm open to their stuff. Y'all music, I don't call it trash. Yeah. It may not be something I want to listen to, right? But there's actually some bops in the mix in there, right? Yeah. And it's little things like that that just, again, that openness. And you do find like people in that generation that definitely were open, and you can just see the kind of youthfulness that stays. And I think that's something about aging, is letting go of being open. Yeah.
Let me, because bro, we could go we can go for hours, B. We can go for hours on that. One of the things that I really appreciate about creativity, you mentioned a bit earlier about the idea of having this idea and then creating something and then seeing it come to fruition. I'm paraphrasing a bit. I agree that experience is hard to put it into words, and it is also very motivating, and encouraging, because like you said, I thought about doing this, I did it, it's successful, and success obviously has a lot of different meanings, right? And with that comes, okay, how can I do it better? How can I tweak? What works? How does that spark another creative process for me? When I first saw the 9 brand,
Okay.
one of the things that jumped out at me was just the visual of it. That, I guess, first the question of 9 brand and that first visual that you came up with, like, where does that come from? What does that mean to you? Now, I know some of this is actually, if people look at the designs, the answer is in the design, some of the stuff you did, but like from a creative process.
So the funny thing is, the first design was called Visionary, and it was a ski mask with an X over the mouth, and had Visionary, all caps, written across like the eye holes. And the whole point of that is exactly what I'm talking about. At times, me trying to explain what is going on in here, I don't have the words for it. Like, I have to just show you.
Okay.
And so that representation of, I can't tell you this, I have the vision, I'm just gonna have to show you.
Okay.
That even tied into like my storyboarding, trying to storyboard out a video or something for, when I did that in life. Just know this shot's gonna work. I don't know how to put it on. I know what I'm seeing. I see the end result. So that was the first drop, and the whole, idea of the 9 brand is slogan of "Do It to the Nines," which is taking what you have in life, what you want out of life, and putting your all into it. Like people talk about dress to the nines, do that same thing for yourself. And this idea that we're all our own brand, and if our brand is successful or not is on us, right? And so it's a mentality thing, and that idea that you have to almost be obsessive in moments about the things that you want. And this idea that everybody is going to understand that or see what it is you're trying to create. No, if somebody hasn't seen it before, it's hard for us to conceptualize things we've never seen or experienced. That's just not a thing, right? We can sit here right now and talk about a wheel because we've seen wheels. But if there wasn't a wheel in existence, somebody was trying to tell you about a wheel. So trying to articulate that can be hard, and that's where this kind of like stems from. And the people, I think, in my life that have known me through periods have seen, no matter what genre I was in, it was this energy of, I'm gonna get this figured out. And I'm trying to paint this picture with my words, and I don't feel like I'm doing it justice. And then when that thing is revealed, then it's like, oh. So having that experience enough times, kind of pulled together. And also just like another side note, as far as like the creation with the whole 9 brand, it really is being, if on paper, none of this here should have happened. And I know that's a lot of our stories, but on paper, I should not be doing what I'm doing as a career. I should not be sitting the seats that I'm sitting in at these tables if it were just looking at paper. I'm here because I'm supposed to be, right? But that is one of those things that I've managed to do in my adult life, is counteract every statistic I made myself as a youth, right? All the way up to deciding, okay, I'm gonna go back to college, and by back, go to college, and go back to school. And part of that was because I robbed my pops of the ability to watch me walk across the high school stage for graduation because of my nonsense. So double backed, did my college run, shout out PSU, and walked across that stage with honors, right? And did that as a full-time parent, full-time job, and all the other stuff. Made my kids sit there, happened to be on Father's Day. It was like, so y'all can't tell me that what you would like to do, you can't do, right? And that's my bigger thing, is there's excuses that exist in life that nobody cares about. Either you're gonna do it or not. Be honest with yourself and just say, I didn't feel like doing it. That's a lot better than telling me 8 reasons why you couldn't.
Wow.
So that's just part of my mentality in general. And don't get me wrong, I've dropped the ball many times in my life in the now even. But my attempt and what I go and put my energy towards, it's there. And so understanding what can come from when looking in the mirror and looking at the story, it didn't seem like it should go this way. That is based on the behind the scenes. So we talk about hustle, we talk about all this stuff. It's boring. Being successful or good at a thing that you do is boring. It's the time behind the scenes doing that thing over, not good, right? And I think there's a lot of people, and I think in our now age, it's a lot of information that's out here that's like overnight.
Yeah.
And that's not it. I really enjoy the process of things. Like that goes back to that curiosity, because it's, okay, let's see if this works. Nope. All right. Let's try the, nope. Okay. Oh, that's partially, okay, I did something. Let's try that one more. Yeah. Oh. Sometimes it's a night of, I didn't get no further than where I started.
Right.
That's the last 6 hours trying to get this thing done. I am no further than when I started 6 hours ago. Yeah. Those are the things we don't really discuss a lot, right? Yeah. Just in general. But I enjoy the process. And when it comes to creating, and this is like, again, tying into the 9 brand, why this has been fun for me, and I'm not this like, I want to be a fashion designer. This is message. These are wearable Post-it notes, right?
Yes.
Like that's what this, it's just reminders to put this into yourself, who you are, what your mission is, what your goal is, right? That is the push of it, and the understanding that this isn't going to happen overnight, for one. And for me, it's not about being the biggest in that genre. For me, it's about creating a thing and putting it out there, because once you create, it's for the world, right? When artists, I think about artists specifically, like in music, creating, and then, oh, y'all ain't playing this, or y'all ain't. Once you release the art, the people are going to tell you what they like. You don't get to tell them what they like.
Right.
So once I make something, I was enjoying the process. Once I've turned it over to here, you guys can have this. I don't have any attachment to what the outcome. Don't get me wrong. It feels great when something hits, and sometimes it's like, damn, I thought that would have moved.
Yeah.
And it don't. But the people are going to tell you what they enjoy. And if it's about pleasing the people, then you're going to keep doing what they do. But if you're doing this for you, keep doing what you do. And it's going to resonate with the people that it's supposed to resonate with. That's one of the things that I think it takes a stress off me, because again, it is the process. And then when I'm done, sometimes it's like, that was great. I don't really even care about that. That was done like that. You know what I mean? It just is the process and what I've gotten out of that. We talk newer into like flow state, and creating or generating ideas. That's some of the few times where time just moves for me, right? And that's where, again, the 9 brand, a lot of this is taken from conversations. I preach journaling in general, right? Preach journaling, especially to men, and I want to make sure so any men out there listening, it's not like Dear Diary. Today the way that I journal is you and I have a conversation, or I'm walking down the street, read a sign, something like, why does that stand out to me? Let me go and extrapolate why I had some type of an emotional pull towards or away from whatever that thing was, and then break that down to my own words. And a lot of times I find certain inspiration from that, that then gets tied in to some of the pieces that I make. So that was a long-winded way of breaking down that creative.
No, but that's dope though, bro. And it's funny you bring up journaling, because as a part of my personal journey, I found that there's power in journaling, and a lot of it comes from being able, like, it's really easy to just work stuff out in your head. Right. And then, you have your community, and your community can be your nuclear family. It can be like the homies. It can be groups that you're a part of. And sometimes you can have conversations with others. But even if you are a very strong-minded individual, you can't have a conversation with someone without being influenced by whatever words they say. And I think that that's great. I think that can be a great thing. But I think it's also very important to be able to process internally. And that's one of the things that I think that journaling drives, is it gives you an opportunity to have a conversation. And science has taught us the power of pen to paper, what that does to the how we process information by writing things down. One of the there's been a theme since we've been talking thus far, though, that I think I want to highlight, and that is sort of the internal intuitiveness of doing things, right? So you've talked about a couple of different things that you've done from, in different areas, and there's something within you that makes you go, let me do this and let me keep working at it and keep working at it and keep working at it. Whereas for some of us, it's harder, right? I will journal for a couple days. And I look up and 3 months later, I ain't journal nothing. You know what I mean? But knowing that you can always get back to it, I think is positive.
And that's a part, like, that's a great highlight. There's times I go weeks that it just doesn't hit. It's more when something actually needs to be worked out, because the way you just broke that down of, I need to get this out by myself, out of my head, and work this down or write this down. Because a lot of times when you read your own thought process, you be like, I'm wilding. Like, this ain't like now that I'm reading this back to myself or coming back to it later, because that's the other part, is coming back to something when you're out of the moment of whatever it was, whether it be a high, a low, a mid. When you come back to it, sometimes you're like, oh yeah, that was, and also it will transport you back to that moment, right? I will say, for people that are journaling or thinking about it, when you do have some of these moments where you're really standing on something, try arguing against your point to yourself. I found that to be useful in a lot of ways. Even through my college tenure, and did social science, so a lot of these classes, I would do my paper on my opposing point. I would never say what my actual thought, but I would have to research the opposite of what I thought. And that used to give me like, oh, that kind of, like, I can see the other side in a different way, right? Not to say that made me agree anymore with the other side, but that helped me to get outside of my logic and my approach to things. And sometimes I'll do that even with the journaling, when I'm sitting down and trying to process something that I didn't enjoy, right? And I'm trying to break this down, or a way that I thought somebody was interacting with me that might have threw me off. And I get in here and break that down and start being able to switch that of, if I approach it like this, how would that conversation have went, kind of, giving those breakdowns. But it definitely is not a thing that's every single day. It's just being consistent to coming back to it. Because when those moments, and anything else, right, it becomes muscle memory in certain times. And if I love people who are able to time block their day out in a great way. I don't have boundaries with time at times. So that's tricky.
When we have an opportunity to utilize the tools of social media to share things that are passionate or important or interesting to us, there are all of these guides and sort of best practices that we see every day. Hey, this is a way to get this and have success with. You have, I'm going to say recently, or I've paid attention to more recently, presented some of those ideas and concepts to us in terms of utilizing the tools that are available to their best abilities, and so that we can have success with those. One is iTechnicallyKan. Which, first off, bro, like, come on, bro, how dope is that? Right?
Yes.
How dope is that? What is iTechnicallyKan?
All right. So iTechnicallyKan is essentially technology for the non-technical, right? This is an idea that started around 2017.
Okay.
Being at, I was working purchasing manager for a construction company out here, and was getting burnt on that culture of that space, and always have been technical in terms of software. It's fairly easy to me. Once you know one DAW, you know all of them. Just where the menus are, right? So that being something that I've always trended towards, and what hit it for me was having a friend at one point who was had went from working in makeup and then had gotten a job scheduling at a technology company, scheduling like flights and hotels, and they had her come in to do a couple of help, and she's great with math, just like high level math mind. Had her help some stuff out, and she ended up tweaking her resume a bit to add that into it. Long story short, was on an interview with Nike for a data analyst role, and called me during the interview because they gave her a task to put together something for data visualization. She calls me of like, I can't figure out how to get this thing connected. Boom, pull over. I'm at work. Pull over.
Yeah.
Shoot her an answer. Go back to work. It works. Gets the job. Bam. She went from making like $12 an hour to like an 80K jump within like a 6-month span.
Wow.
And I was like, I did this on the fly.
Yeah.
What? Again, I'm not even knowing that these were roles that just you could get into. So that was for me a moment of, okay, tech, the creative portion, design, like going into your data dashboards, understanding that data is, if you're curious, the answers are in the numbers, right?
Yeah.
And so during that time, that was while working full time. My daughter lived here in the state with me, full-time dad role, juggling the stuff and starting back at PSU, but was also trying to teach myself data analytics. So getting the books, getting the stuff. And this is what I ran into. The Meetup app. You had the Meetup app, and when I would go to do some of these meetups, there was always this look of me coming through the door that felt a little like, or having the conversations and feeling like I had to talk for a second before you understood that I was supposed to be here. I didn't just wander in. And that also took me, or made me sit back and observe sometimes when they were having conversations about topics, their references and stuff was like, culture-wise, it just, I don't really understand that, so it's not locking in my head the way it is for y'all.
Yeah.
This, iTechnicallyKan, I had created the IG originally, the name, the website, and all that to kind of document the process of me learning, teaching myself this stuff. So it was going to be like the portfolio, all that stuff. Of course, we get into like fast forward a couple of years, 2020 hits, everything shuts down. It was just a scramble. All the things had to pivot, do whatever. So this has always been there, right? Continuously learning, and doing it a lot on my own, but buying courses here and there just to pick up, and then come into feeling like I'm banging my head a little bit because there's still not a level of like certification or anything that I have. This is just stuff that I've learned. So how do I present this in a way like I'm actually a subject matter expert, or even that I'm just good enough at this to communicate it? How the world works with all the things, get reached out to on LinkedIn and by a software company, and it was based on, just some clips and other content unrelated that had to do with all this database learning, all this analyst type role. I'm fumbling that. Data analyst type content in which I have been learning and putting out there, just bits and pieces though, but then also at my speaking engagements and stuff like that. So get this call about this role, go interview, and all of that self-teaching that I couldn't quite connect it. In this role, it came together because it's like, oh, this is all of this in a business setting. This is what that meant. This is how these marry together. Boom, it hit. So it was like, now if I'm doing this, people are getting paid for me doing this in a row. I'm going to deliver to the people. Now come into 2022, November 2022 is when ChatGPT dropped. That is before it got big, right? That's when it was released and Reddit was ablaze. Shout out to Reddit. If y'all ain't on Reddit, it is not just a weird spot. There's a weird corner of every internet thing, but Reddit has some really dope resources. On there, I remember hitting up Morgan Ambush about it and being like, duh. And at first, it was skepticism, and when I was talking to people about it, they couldn't fathom it outside of like Google. That was their connect. So like Google, no, nothing like Google. I'm on record saying the world has changed. I don't know if y'all the world has shifted as of now. The reason that it shifted is because no longer do you have to just go get the book, read through it, right, and not understand, wait to go talk to somebody. Google is great for some things. A lot of times I just need an answer as I'm working through, right? I need somebody right there when I'm like, okay, I'm trying to understand this concept. Nah, I don't quite get it. Explain it again. Nah, break it down a little bit more. Okay, cool. Now I get it. Google doesn't allow you to necessarily do that, right? these language models have even the playing field, because can you say your thought? You don't even have to have it in a logical sense, because it's trained on understanding thinking patterns, speaking patterns, and so on. So it can make sense out of what you're trying to ask. And because you can go back and forth, we think about how many people don't want to raise their hand in a class to answer the question, right?
Right.
And then think about the people who raise their hand, and this is being an instructor, I peep this, where I'll answer a question, I can tell in their face they didn't get it, and they're like, okay, but you don't want to say, I don't get it.
Right.
People don't feel that way in front of their computer screen,
Right.
in front of their phone.
Right.
So this has leveled the playing field in terms of being able to understand and gain an understanding. And then we're getting back into the space of, if you are able, we think about that, a lot of people talk about college degrees and the people who did their different art degrees, and you did something for writing or something. That's where this shines, right? And so what I've found since that 2022, I would go into some of these events and little community gatherings, and they'd be talking about, entrepreneurship and things of that nature. And when ChatGPT would come up, and I'm thinking everybody knew, like, this is, do y'all understand how? It's like, oh, people are not getting introduced to this in the way that I think people are getting introduced to this. And even with that, they're not using it in the ways that's actually beneficial. They're still treating it like Google. So that kind of shifted my whole thing from the data analytics portion into, I'm just going to get y'all comfortable with technology, because this data analytics is a very specific, and I can understand where that's like, oh, no, that's but getting you to understand the tools that are available right now that have leveled this playing field will help streamline a lot of our processes just in day to day. You need to understand how to utilize this, because this is getting embedded in everything. People say AI, that's the catchphrase. AI has been around since forever. Artificial intelligence is you typing a text and the words popping up, change. All of that is AI, right? This version of the LLMs, which is large language models, that's what has changed and revolutionized things. And this being trained on essentially the entire internet plus some, right? This is where we're at a space in life where it used to be you can hear or believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Now, don't believe nothing.
Don't believe nothing.
Nothing.
Not a thing.
And understanding how fast this technology has progressed. I think of when they first did image generation versus just almost 7-8 months later from that initial point of what it's gotten into, with the ability to swap a face now and it not be able to tell the difference, right? So I just feel that with iTechnicallyKan, the bigger goal is to educate on what is available, what's out there that you can use as a tool. It's easy to become overwhelmed. I try to paint the picture of, you don't go into Home Depot and say, I'm going to figure out what I need while I'm in here. No, you go in there with the idea that I need a hammer. I need a wrench. You grab that, you might see something else that's like, oh yeah, I actually got to get to this other job later. That might be useful. But if you go in without an idea, that's going to be overwhelming. And there's no point in overwhelming yourself. Find a pain point that you have, a problem that you're trying to solve. Once you know your problem is trying to solve, that helps to narrow down the influx of the AI tools that are out there.
And I haven't watched the video. I watched the sort of the intro of it. But you actually break down very specifically how people can do that. Right? How they can go into a project looking for some I'm going to use the word assistance. And if you use this tool, it will make it easier for you to get specifically what you're trying to get at.
Yes, that's where trying to get people to understand how to be specific, because that's what Google did, is let us be general. Just how do you. But if you can get specific, this will really get specific on that thing. And that's what I'm trying to arm people with, is the understanding of how to use this at a higher level. It doesn't take necessarily more brain power. It's just a few more steps that's going to save you on the back end of having to re-query and re-ask the same thing over and over. And that starting in the ChatGPT level, there's other elements that are going to be introduced as kind of going along, but my bigger goal is to make sure that your solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, and also people looking to make career pivots, how to utilize what's out there.
So people are hearing this like, okay, this is intriguing, or oh yo, this is kind of what I was looking for. Like, how did they tap in? How did they find this information?
So you can find, I've got the YouTube set up, got the IG set up, iTechnicallyKan, all one word. Can is spelled with a K. That is across all the platforms. Drop the short clips on my Instagram along with TikTok, and then there's full-length, full-form videos on YouTube, usually dropping those weekly, every couple of weeks. And when people tap in with me about specific ideas that they've got, I try to take those and incorporate those into what it is that I'm creating, which that is something that I want more of. So if you're listening and there's something specific that you're trying to learn more about, let me know, because with that helps to generate the content that you all can actually benefit from, right? So I've just been kind of doing the ABC foundational stuff, but definitely would love to be able to introduce some more.
That's what's up, bro.
Yeah.
Okay, so we want to keep it 100.
Yeah. I
first heard about ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And you gotta understand, bro, like my background and just my belief system. I jokingly say this, but I think that there's a little bit, truth to it. And there's a lot of stuff out there I be like looking at sideways, you know what I mean? And so the whole artificial intelligence thing is like, I saw Terminator. Yeah. You feel me? Like that whole mindset. So when that first came up, I was like, nope, not tapping in, right? And then I was talking to a couple of homies, and they were telling me how they had utilized ChatGPT to assist them in some projects. And what they told me that they were able to get from it blew my mind, right? So then I was like, okay, I'm about to join in, jump on the bandwagon. Yeah. And I've used ChatGPT for assisting in content, really for promotion of the stuff that I do, right? The radio shows, the things. So I had this idea of this project that's coming. Okay. And I needed to work some stuff out. Yeah. And I needed to just brainstorm, right? So, all right, ChatGPT, this is what I'm looking to do. And so first of all, let me say, it is a little creepy, bro, because and I want to say at one point I was it sounds so weird to say it. I was communicating with ChatGPT and ChatGPT was like, so how do you want me to respond? Do you want me to respond like this or like that? And now communicating, it doesn't feel like I'm talking to someone strange, just with the vernacular that's used. It's anyway. Yeah. So this is what I want to do, and we went back and forth for 15 minutes, and I got this project that I'm about to drop.
You just laid it out. The method in which you're talking about, in terms of hidden that they added the ability to talk to it. So like we're familiar with our Siri or whatever's on Android. I don't deal in those waters. But the ability to get on there, I thought stream. So at this point, I'll pop it open at times, and I'm like, I just need you to listen for a moment. I have this general idea, and I'm just going to throw everything disjointed your way. Help me to put this in order, right? A logical flow through this, and just talk. Workshopping back and forth is the part, because typing sometimes, and I tell people this, sometimes when I'm going and I try to type in what I'm asking, it's not the same. Right. Me being able just to hit that button, get to flowing, and then it's going to ask the questions back and tweaking. That is it. And that's where trying to get people to get the mindset of, this is your assistant in the way of like you're talking to your partner trying to get through. Don't start trying to talk in a way you don't speak. Right. Just talk as if you're trying to get this point across, and you're trying to get somebody to understand what you're trying to say. And I do understand that idea of where it's like the apprehension, right? Seeing how some people utilize this a little different than I do, where they're going into like creating their own therapists, they're sharing their deepest, darkest secrets and things of that nature. I don't necessarily go down that path with it. Although I have tried to break down of some of the dilemmas I might be having of here, what are other ways to look at this, situation or whatever. But one of the things that I try to tell people when it comes to this idea that, you can never use it, that's cool. People thought the same thing about cell phones, cars, all the things that regardless if you do it or not, this is where we're at.
Right.
The world is shifting. The world changed. Like when I say that, I mean that wholeheartedly. The world changed. Can't say for worse or better right now, because always the transition phase is always the rockiest, right? There's a lot of unknown. It's a lot of fluff. Think of the .com bust bubble that happened way back in the late 90s. That was a thing, right? And then it crashed down. But the internet became what the internet became. Right? And so this is a thing that's happening regardless. And the more you know, the less the possibility it is that you're going to get duped.
Right.
And that's the bigger part. If you're for nothing else, learn this for your safety. These videos at this point, the videos that are being generated by just somebody typing in words, generating 2-3 minute videos, the ability to voice clone, the ability to go into these AI apps and find a voiceover. You just put a script and now it sounds like, so my ear is there because of the work that I do on my day job. Like we've had to use some of these voiceover tools and so on. But when I'm watching YouTube, sometimes I'll throw YouTube on the background and I'll put on 500 strange facts and just throw that on the play. And I'm like realizing all of these have converted over to being AI, and the average ear isn't going to catch it because it's almost perfect, and every so often there's a pronunciation. I'm like, yeah, no human would have said that. We all know that name. That's too easy. But your general average person is not going to catch that. So with that said, it's having an awareness of what's there, even if you don't want to use it for your day-to-day task. You still should be aware of what's happening and what you're up against. And not to have this is something that I encourage my teacher friends when this was all happening. I do a meet with my teacher group like once a month, and a lot of them were scared in terms of the kids. You know, they're going to be, you're always going to have some people that are going to find the loophole, right? And I said, but try reframing it like this. You have a group of students. Some of them are not the best at being able to write out their thoughts for that essay. They have the thoughts. They may not know how to structure something. So for them going to this tool, now they're able to get some output. And if it's their story, regardless if this was written and formatted, then when you test them about their story, they'll be able to articulate to you the points that are in there. They just wouldn't have been able to capture it this way, and their grade would have suffered because it would have seemed like just a bunch of randomness put together. So you have to kind of reframe that and understand how to use this in conjunction with what you're doing. That's really what it boils down to.
It's funny. You just made me think of a story. I probably watch, in terms of, mind candy, or I need to just chill for a bit. I probably watch YouTube more than anything, right? More than watching a TV show and this and the third.
Same.
So just kind of scrolling through what's up on YouTube, and wife was like, yo, look at that. And it was a music video. I can't remember if it must have been around Easter.
Okay.
And it was this really dope collaboration with Rihanna, Adele, and Eminem. Music videos, whatever. So we sit there, we watch, and I'm like, huh. So I'm a curator.
Yeah.
I host a radio show.
Yeah.
I'm constantly getting content I got to be up on.
Yeah.
So first, I was like, wow, that's kind of interesting that they got them together. But around Easter, okay, I guess I could see where that would come together. So we watched the 2.5 minute video, whatever, and wife was like, yo, it's so cool. Like the writing was so beautiful. It's in the third, whatever. And I was like, yeah, it's AI. She was like, what? So, and the thing that made me think about it is what you said. You can look at something, you can listen to something and say, a person wouldn't say that. I know Eminem. Eminem doesn't rhyme like that. Yeah. And I thought it was kind of sus that they got those three individual, you know what I mean?
Yes.
I say that to say I've been concerned for a long time about the older generation, right? I remember when I was a child, my mom used to hate technology, and I'm talking about for this menu, press 1. Like just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the challenge is, I would say that, for a lot of folk, life is going to pass them by because they don't understand. I think that this creates a great conversation with not just the youth, but with our peers and with our elders. That, again, like you said, Now it's don't believe anything, question everything, not just to be a conspiracy theorist like I am, but because you need to understand that I can look at that and go, that's not real.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if not, then we see the stories that unfortunately we're seeing on the news now, where someone picks up the phone and it's, mommy, please help me. I've got your kid in there. You know, you send me whatever dollar amount.
Yeah.
But if you don't understand that, oh, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
This is how I differentiate reality from, you know, there's a saying that harkens back to my spiritual heritage. Even the very elect will be deceived. Oof. And that's associated with spirituality. But I think that there's wisdom in that statement, right? I can be the most intelligent, successful person on the planet, and I can be deceived unless I'm studying. And studying not only your guide to spirituality, whatever that looks like, but also studying what's happening in the world, studying the world is changing, and not being afraid of that, maybe not. You know, if you feel like I shouldn't embrace that, being separate from that, okay, right? But I do need to know that, you know, if I put too much of this ingredient in the food that I'm eating, it's going to harm. You just got to be aware, right? 100%. And I feel like that's what, and I don't want to speak for you, but I feel like that's a part of what iTechnicallyKan can provide for people.
1,000%, and that's a great. They lead into like that idea of that awareness portion where it's like, it's not big and scary. It's just life now. And bringing that awareness and touching on some of those subjects where there are some methods to finding the end point, because that's a big part too, is how people are introduced. We think technology, that word overwhelms people. That goes back to like this idea of that I had in my head of what these titles meant as far as people and who you had to be. And it's like, nah, there's a level of curiosity that gotta exist, but you also have to find the entry point that makes sense. I just did something yesterday of looking up like trying to figure out, my skin done shifted as an adult and getting in my 40. I'm gonna say that jumping over that 40 fence, where I used to use olive oil. I've used olive oil since I was maybe 19. Whole body, face, everything. Some reason now it's shifted on my face. It's like it makes my face kind of rough. So trying to figure out the alternatives, and some lotions just don't hit, yada yada. I happened to hop on ChatGPT because I was looking at different products, and there was like this face wash combo of toner and all this stuff that I'm looking at, and I was like, I don't know what none of this means. Threw this in there, and it gave me the side-by-side based on what I was looking to do with my specific skin, what my goal was. I don't have a bunch of acne. I've never had that, so I'm not looking for things that are going to help with that. It laid this stuff out in a table, side-by-side breakdowns of here's what this does. And so you take that and you think about an entry point. I think about medicine. I've never been a pill taker. Tylenol, aspirin, to me, same thing. Like your ibuprofen, Tylenol, that's all the same. They're just different uses. I should know it. I don't, because I don't take it, right? Being able to just go and put in, what is this? What is this? What does it do? What is this? What does it do? Being able to find those little entry points to get somebody comfortable, because once you're comfortable, then that allows you to loosen up a bit, right? It's no similar than walking in a room where nobody looks like you, and then you happen to see, oh, there's another. That lets usually something go. So it's just having to recognize that thing that's for you in the space. And with iTechnicallyKan, it's consistently trying to introduce ways to get people to walk through that door. You know,
I dig it, man. I dig it. I think that it can be a great tool for folk who even just have an interest. Well, I think both, right? People who have an interest in and are looking for, how do I begin? And then, as we've discussed, for those who feel like, I don't really like this thing, but okay, if you're going to help me have a better understanding of how do I connect, or how do I know just enough to know what's going on? And that's good. That's good for me.
It's got the range. We can take it as far as you want to go, baby.
Again, for me, it's a tool that I use for creativity, for helping to support and sort of work through ideas in a creative space. It is interesting how I also, and really a part of what I did early on in my introduction to it was I almost used it as I'm looking for this information, and it's probably easier for you, ChatGPT, to go out there because you're connected. To where I don't have to Google this. Okay, now Google this, and then go down a rabbit hole and then be like, oh, yo, what's that? Oh, new shoes about to drop, right? No, you're gonna go glean that information. And so for me, that was a part of how I started using it. The opportunity to look at, hey, what else is Kan involved in, and being able to pull all of the different things that you've done in the past. I think about the different platforms that you've used and built and created and been a part of when it comes to this. You know, this having conversations, podcasting. You've done a little bit of that, bro.
You know, the path, that's the curious path, right? We keep talking on that. And mine goes back to, I think about my first, it was maybe my second apartment. My kids were still little. And I remember buying printers from Walmart, going in the bathroom because that was where the internet was the strongest for whatever reason.
Yeah, that's not strange at all.
Not at all. It's in the master bed. So I would sit in there at night, my whole how to, and it was mostly related to mixing songs. How to, trying to understand EQ, trying to understand compression, printing out pages and pages and pages and pages till the ink ran out, and then I go return it. Let's exchange it for another. That was my process way back then, right? So I'm going to show how all these pieces connect. So doing like versions of audio engineering, then coming into writing songs. I've again journaled since a teenager, dabbled into the poetry space. I think more so have came from the cleverness of writing bars. That was always I'm a stickler to this day. If you got a good little punchline, like, oh with that, transitioning from that into, I remember getting a version of Photoshop, CS2. It's like, I need art for these projects. So here I am. Oh, cool, I'm getting fairly good with this. I moved to Portland unexpectedly, got down here, pulled me away from a lot of the other stuff I was into, mind you, like, you know, still having a life outside of just my at-home behind-the-scenes thing. And when I came to Portland, this made me sit down. I was away from everything I knew, the hustling and stuff that I was doing. It was like I had to pump my brakes without wanting to. And when I got here, didn't know anyone. My mom was here at that time. Jumping on, this is right when Facebook was open to the public now. It was taking off, MySpace was dying. It was like the that middle point. So we looked, trying to find black people. Well, I was out in Beaverton, right? I bought a camera, because I know people would let the camera guy in. Sole purpose. That was right when Canon released the T2i. Put them few hundred up, grab that joint. I was showing it to events. There's people to this day that still be bringing it up, like, bro, you owe me money, right? You know that, right? But I was showing up like, oh, I'm the cameraman for, and I was just coming in events, taking pictures, and that was allowing me to maneuver around and then just sharing them. That's back in the day we didn't curate so much. It was just throw the whole roll on there. And that was getting me connection with people, but also I'm learning how to use the camera as I'm trying to go and meet people and be in spaces, right? And realized after a moment, oh, videos can work on this too. Cool, capturing video content, which then led into, oh, I can edit. And because of just my ability to frame, my ability to understand, like I am very specific when it comes to putting things together. So therefore, it was like, oh, this is tight. I enjoy this, taking this from just random shots, now throwing this together, and it's a moment to sit still and be absorbed in a moment that was experienced by people. Started doing videos. Then I seen it here at PCC. They had a video certificate course. Boom, we pop over there. So being that I have some of the audio engineering background, I knew how to get the audio in here right, get these levels. That transitioned into doing interview style setups, short documentaries is what I was positioning them as, along with the music video stuff, right? So this was tying in because I understood the music, I understood conversation, getting the edits that then brought my name up. The first thing that a lot of people knew me for here was Activity Media.
Okay.
And that was me showing up. That was 503 TV. Shout out to them. They was doing a thing when I got here. And that became like quickly, it was one of us that was, typically out here. Yeah. And I think that I, definitely trended into a space with just some of the creative ways in which I was able to, process a song and think of the visual to go with it that stood out a little bit. So did that for a bit and then go into right around 2016, we talk about conversations. Morgan, shout out to my sis.
Yeah, man.
Her, and at that time, one of my other partners, Maxwell, this has been one of my guys since forever. And just us talking, he has some fringe thoughts where we always joke that he wants to be a white man so bad. But the conversations, and Morgan being such a knowledgeable woman that has a stance and can articulate her stance. Yeah. And also leaves space for nuance in, conversations. So we were talking, and at that time, podcast was not a thing that people were doing.
Right.
I was like, we should hop on and just have some of these talk. We be talking, having the time of our life. We should hop on here and get going. Again, the audio engineering background, the video, all of these elements, all of this stuff finds itself into the next thing. It's just snowballing for us. So we get going. In 2016, we start the Unrefined Sophisticates, and legitimately we dropped starting the first week of 2017. We started recording because we wanted to have multiple episodes. We were doing 3-hour joints. We started out doing around 3 hours every other week, right? There wasn't many pods out there in terms of format to really know. So we were just talking till we ran out. Right. Then we started adding some, bit more structure in terms of topics and so on. And then we ended up we did that for about almost 3 years. And then we shifted into a weekly hour and a half that we were doing. And then in 2020, when everything hit, we were doing this in person up to this point, and then we stopped doing the in person because of COVID, started doing this virtually, which just was like, okay, we can do this. This is a lot easier than trying to travel and all that. Yeah. And that led into opportunities for me and Morgan. Maxwell ended up having to leave the pod in 2019, but that for Morgan and I opened up opportunities for speaking engagements, hosting events, being able to interview some really dope people in the city as contracted by other organizations and so on. So that opened up the door for a lot. And again, a lot of what we did played into it. Now, all that said, coming into the 2020, sitting in this space we're in right now, during that whole time, and this is for those listening and seeing these overlapping years of the things that were happening, this is where we tell like the juggle be crazy. Because during this time, me and David had also started a KBOO show on Tuesdays, live calculated conversation. So that ran.
And David from Stack and Kicks.
David from Stack and Kicks, shout out to bro. We had that weekly show, doing an hour every Tuesday, and that was great. We started 2020, everything shut down. We actually were transitioning over to the X-ray space at that point. Again, still doing the pod, doing this. That was through the 10 years of going back to school, being a soccer dad, all that stuff. Everything sitting down. I had quit my job that I had been working at for almost a decade as that purchasing manager. It was legit. It was February 29th. It was a leap year. 2020 was a leap year. 29th, I was sitting in my space in there. Yeah, I'm done.
Wow.
Boom, went. I was like, hey, so out of there.
Yeah.
The world shut down a week later. Luckily, I had some, I had some money saved up and stuff, so it wasn't a super, rough at first. It was like, okay, I've got my cushion. It's like I took a trip. I did that. I went trip down to Dago, which is my hometown, and shot down there with my pops for a few days, and then came back in the world, shut down. So it was an interesting point. I don't know how to sit still. At that time, as we're trying to navigate through it, Ambush, shout out DJ Ambush, which is Morg's fiance. The numbers was coming up. There was talks about the numbers, right? And him doing more on that side. He was doing stuff with XRAY previous to that, and I guess at the same time in conjunction. And I started showing up here daily. We were sitting in that space with a recorder and a few pieces, and actually Morgan and I got the Naked Athena interview. And we had did that, and that was a big thing during the protest. We had got that person in here. She wouldn't talk to any of the outlets, came talk to us. We did that in here and kind of used some of that attention that came from that and pointed it towards what we had going. Am and I started really doing a lot day to day. Him more so because he is the mover and shaker, right? That's the mover shaker, man, sure. And that being that all my background, again, all these elements came into what we're doing because we were at that point a very small team of people gathering, pulling resources, and making stuff happen. So that kicked into doing these interviews and then introducing video streaming portions, and then ended up getting what was supposed to be a week-long run with the Portland Art Museum, then developed into a whole partnership, us getting an office in the Portland Art Museum, not an art studio, the Portland Art Museum, the Numbers FM, a floor of curated dopeness for the community. And again, all those things picked up over time came into being able to make that happen. And that translates now into what's happening with the iTechnicallyKan, still translating into the 9 brand. It's just the idea that this can be done, and your end goal, it's still being creative, and that looks a bunch of different ways. As a kid, I didn't have necessarily an idea of exactly what I wanted to be. I just knew what was around me, that wasn't what I was going to be doing. There's also this belief, I think, that happens for the people that I know that are successful, is there's that voice in the back of the head or the guidance from the ancestors that are reminding you that there's more, and it's for you. And that's the part that I have undoubtedly known that I'm going to be successful since a child. What that looked like, I didn't have a clear vision of that. Still don't have a clear vision of that, right? I find, though, that I think some of my successes comes from this. It's these back and forths. It's the influence that I'm able to gain from people that I respect what it is that they're doing, and being able to have these type of back and forths to where I'm getting to share my experience, your experience is being shared. Now I have another piece that I can add to my life experience as I'm moving forward and through it. And I think there's a part of it that no matter our self-talk can do a lot. And having to check yourself, like the voice in my head is a wild voice. And there's legit times I'll be like, shut up. Like, what are you, like, why did that even come through? Like, I'll legit say that out loud. In terms of some of those moments of doubt and so on, when I've got too much evidence that things work in my favor typically. So, and how many times has whatever I'm stressing about actually happened? You know what I mean? In terms of something going wrong. So with that, it's you know, just this inherent knowledge that things are going to be better and will get better, and taking what I've learned along the way in stride, that it's all for a reason. And in the moment, it's not always going to make sense, but the amount of times it was like, oh, that if I wouldn't have, this wouldn't have been able to play out. You know what I mean? And that's just, that's what keeps it going. And again, then being open to not knowing nothing. Like that's the other part, is being open to, like, I know what I know. That doesn't mean I know nearly enough.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can't shut yourself down. You have to be. You have to be open, bro. This is crazy. So as we were talking, man, I'm like, okay, we definitely have to do a part 2 because the audio engineering and the writing stuff, like, I had no idea. So we're gonna have to continue this. But for now, I want to be sure that people are aware of and I want to encourage people to tap into two things. So one more time, let people know about iTechnicallyKan, how they can tap in and stay up on what.
So it's going to be iTechnicallyKan on all the platforms. You're going to get your short form on your TikTok, your Instagram, and then if you jump on over to YouTube, you'll get those full tutorial breakdowns there. And then the 9 brand, which is because typically I've got a hat on or a shirt. I didn't know for sure we were doing a video, but that's on me for not preparing. With that though, coming into the 9 brand, it's at the IXBRAND. It's the Roman numeral 9. So the IXBRAND. You can find that on the socials. Website is www.theixbrand.co. Not .com. Don't let your browser mess it up for you. .co.
That's what's up, man. Yeah, definitely check out the 9 brand. We touched a little bit on it, man. Let me publicly say thank you so much for rocking with us at the day party that we did last year. It was so dope to have you out there. Again, the quality of the work that you do, the designs are all on point.
Thank you.
I love that there is, the idea that you are your own brand.
Yes.
There's so much power in that statement and what you continue to put out in terms of building. I mean, there's so much in this world that we have to navigate. And to have a platform and utilize your platform to encourage and build into people, I think is to be celebrated. So thank you for doing that, bro. Thank you for for creating a platform that we can all celebrate. So definitely check it out. iTechnicallyKan and then the 9 brand for sure.
Yes, Lord.
Can Jones live here on the Klyph Notes podcast, man. Thank y'all so much for rocking with me. Remember, the podcast is available everywhere you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or at klyphnotes.com. You can also check me out all over social media at DJ Klyph, DJ KLYPH. Be sure to remember to tap in with the No Request DJs every 4th Sunday at the White Eagle Saloon. It's a free event. It's an early event. We get you in and out, really set your week off really nice with some golden era hip hop. You can check me out every Saturday night on XRAY FM. Welcome to the neighborhood with dope interviews, content, great music, and oftentimes concert ticket giveaways. And who knows what else I'll be doing. There's some stuff coming. I just can't talk about it right now. All right, y'all. God bless you until we have an opportunity to do this again. Peace.